Hey everybody, this is TJ Cates with Nashville Entertainment Weekly. I'm with
Jill Santibanez, and look who we have today.
I'm Rick Revel.
Rick is right here in Nashville, Tennessee at
That's
In-House
right.
Creative Studios.
It's good to be here with you.
And we're going to
Thank
talk about
you.
the many talents of Rick Revel, y'all. This is kind of a lot. Get out your pen and paper, get your Googler out, get ready to go to the website. You're not going to believe what all this man accomplishes.
I know, so many
in 1
things.
week.
Well-
Multi-talented, right? Not just a novelist, but also you have a background in music.
Yes,
And
I
now
do.
you're actually doing a show, which is fascinating. I don't know how you accomplish everything in this amount of time.
Well, you have to stay quite busy if you're going to try to make it in the entertainment world.
Yeah.
We actually called it edutainment.
Education.
It's kind of interesting. See, years ago I was in Nashville and began to work in the entertainment industry and songwriter, and I was singing. I started singing on some of the local shows at the time when I was 15.
Nice.
So I started doing all that. But by the time I got to be an elder teenager, about age 18 or 19, my history bug, it bit.
Yeah.
And I went on the bicentennial wagon train, went all the way from Memphis, Tennessee to Valley Forge, Pennsylvania.
Holy cow.
Went to Valley Forge where George Washington
Oh,
and the
my
troops
goodness.
held
You went
up.
all the way back.
And so it gave me that opportunity to really taste history. And so as I got older with my music, I got to thinking, well, there was a man by the name of Johnny Horton. He used to do the Battle of New Orleans and Sink the Bismarck and a lot
Okay.
of historical ballads.
Yeah.
Started out at doing rockabilly type of music or honky-tonk style music. But he switched over, and when he did the historical ballads, it just boomed. And so I
Funny.
kind of took that concept
Yeah.
and started working with it on my own music. So I started writing
Right.
ballads about history, and from that, a few years ago, I met a gentleman by the name of Tom McKinney, and he'd written a biography about a gentleman by the name of Jack Henson. The story takes place in Stewart County, Tennessee, and that's little town of Dover, Tennessee is there. There's also a military facility there called Fort Donelson. It's now a national military park.
Right.
Wow.
And so Jack Henson lived in this area. And Tom wrote this biography about Jack Henson, and we became friends. I wrote a song about his book, and it's called The Ballad of Captain Jack, and we became friends after he invited me to go on the road with him and start promoting his book with the song. And so
That's so neat.
it's pretty cool. And so I wrote a movie script about his book, and when I did that, he said, can you take that movie script, can you convert that into a historic fiction novel? Well, when he said that, I said, historic fiction novel, what is that?
Yeah.
He said, well, that's where you take fiction and history and combine it together. So in the book, what I do, when the people have a conversation, the dialogue, that's the fiction. But the events that take place, what they get involved in, that's history. It's
Yeah.
what actually happened to them. Jack has an interesting story. It's kind of a rags to riches story. When he first moved to Tennessee, he was broke as a church mouse, and he just didn't have the money hardly to survive. But by the time the war begins, he's a very wealthy man. So over a period of 30 years, he becomes a very wealthy man, owns several businesses in Dover. When the war begins, he is faced with a situation where, do I get involved? Do I support the Southern cause? Do I support the Northern cause? Do I remain neutral? He chose to remain neutral so his businesses would thrive. And that went well for a little while, but he met a group of men called the Irish Dragoons.
Oh, they sound tough.
The Irish Dragoons, they were so bad. How bad were they? They were so bad that their captain, Captain Naughton, they were called Naughton's Irish Dragoons. Within a year's time, he left and went back to St. Louis, where they came from,
Oh, goodness.
with a nervous breakdown, literally. He could not control the men. They drank all the time. They were constantly in trouble with the provost marshal. But one of the people they did not like was Jack Henson. They did not like the Henson family at all. So a vendetta begins to grow, and before long, they wind up murdering two of Jack's sons.
Ooh.
Sad.
And after that happens, Jack Henson goes, he has a special built rifle. It was built down in Lewis County, Tennessee, a little town called Newburgh. Carries the gun back home, and he begins to alleviate the problem. He takes the gentleman that killed his sons, he gets
Takes
revenge.
care of them. Yeah.
Gets revenge, and he kills all the men. It was about 15 of them, kills all those men.
He was on a mission.
Then he becomes a wanted man, and after becoming a wanted man, bounty hunters came after him, other Union patrols came after him. And before the war ends, he kills 130 men.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, with that
Wow.
one. That
And all
special
that's
made
right
rifle.
here in the pages of this book that's
Yeah.
out now available at rickrevel.com.
RickRevel.com, and it's full of artwork and vintage photos. The front cover, I did the front cover and the back cover, so that's some of my artwork.
Man.
So I do artwork as well. There's 25 of my pieces in there. Then Andy
Incredible.
Thomas, we have some of his artwork in it. And plus there's some vintage photos from the
Very
Library
cool.
of Congress.
And you're currently on a book tour for this,
Oh yeah, I'm doing a book
right?
tour. We're going to be doing a book signing in Dixon, Tennessee on the 15th of November.
Just 30 miles
Nice.
west of Nashville on I-40, everybody.
Very close by.
Yep, so we'll be there on the 15th. We'll be down in Murfreesboro, Tennessee on the 23rd of November, down at the Sam Davis home. And I believe it's the 7th and 8th of December in Franklin, Tennessee at the Mid-South Civil War Show. We'll be there the whole weekend doing a book signing at Mike Kent's Civil War Show there.
So if you look at this body of the social media text, you can see a click, and it's going to take you to those locations. And you're always going to go to rickrevel.com.
Oh, yeah.
Follow what you're doing. Okay, let's take a minute real
Right.
quick and let's talk
Yeah.
about everything else that you're doing. Let's briefly cover that, because you have a new show that's becoming
History Highway, yes, sir. Back about a year ago, Ken Andrist approached me to do a documentary on the book, and we developed a friendship. And he wanted to take not only and do some things about Jack Henson's story, but as we began to do some tourism videos for Stewart County, he began to see the love and the passion for history that I possessed, and he said, could we
Your
do that?
knowledge, your knowledge.
Yeah, and he said,
Yeah.
could you put that in a television show? And I said, well, actually, I wrote a draft for a show many moons ago for PBS, and at that time I had a different name attached to it. And he said, well, could you kind of come up with a different name for it? And I said, well, yeah. And I said, what about History Highway? Because it's a travel show.
You're really
Of
good with
course.
titles.
And I wanted to make it something to where it's a variety. You'll have me singing about the Queen of the Mississippi, which is a riverboat. So I'll be singing about that, but also tell you the history behind the boat and behind the river town where the boat docks. So I'll tell you those things. I'll talk to you about Fort Donaldson.
Or Donaldson.
Yeah, Fort Donaldson, where Jack was involved at some of the things during the battle that took place there. He liked the whole idea of taking that and incorporating it into a show. So episode 1, I said, well, if it's going to be a travel show, I want it to be different. I don't want it to be like every other show that you see on the
Right.
History Channel,
Yeah.
where you travel around the country picking out antiques, and it's always about picking out antiques. Or you go to a pawn shop, and it's always about pawn items. Or you go about counting cars, and it's always about counting cars. And
Yeah.
you're not really covering vast amounts of history. It's very narrow. So what if I'm driving a 55 Chevy,
A yellow one.
a yellow one, canary yellow? It's a
Nice.
gorgeous car,
Beautiful.
and she'll squall the tires.
I bet you will.
And
Only one.
Yes. And we're going to take the car, and we're going to drive it from point A to point B. And every time we go past a historical marker, we'll stop there. And that won't be constantly historical marker after historical marker. But for instance, like Camp Tyson I mentioned earlier to you. Camp Tyson now is just a big cornfield. But during World War II, 24,000 men trained there to fly the barrage balloons.
Wow.
How about that?
And these are the barrage balloons that flew over Omaha Beach. So in the little town
Right there.
of Paris, Tennessee, that's where those 24,000 men trained. Plus, there were Italian and German prisoners held there.
Did not know that.
Just little bits of American history that's vanished.
Yeah.
And that's what we're capitalizing on, is those bits and pieces of history that have vanished, completely annihilated. Because as the pages turn in American history,
yeah.
we forget. We forget so quickly. It's the old
Right.
saying, and we do. And so I want to take and back up the clock a little bit. We go to the Henry County Courthouse, and I'm standing in front of the memorial there. That's for the World War II memorial. And I bring up the subject of Memorial Day. Memorial Day has an interesting beginning. Now, a lot of people credit John A. Logan, which was a Union general, for that. He was at that time, during the mid-1800s, the head of a group called the Grand Army of the Republic. But he actually borrowed the idea from a group of ladies in Columbus, Georgia. So actually Memorial Day, which started out as Decoration Day, started in the South. And so we tell that story. It's called Back to the Fact.
So you're just a historian that actually knows the facts, and you're telling it through your music, through your films, through your television, and your book.
And it's edutainment.
All right,
Yeah.
y'all got to check out Rick Revel. We could go
Yeah,
and do this
I know.
forever, man.
It
It's really
actually-
interesting.
it brings you
If
back to
school
his
was
book,
like
guys.
this, I would have paid attention. You should have been my teacher.
And you can take this home with you. You can get it available on his website. And
Yes.
pretty soon it'll be available on Amazon.
We're working on it.
Yes, we're working on that. But right now, everybody go to rickrevel.com and get it today, guys. And you're going to love it. History.
And come to see us at some of our book signings.
That's
Love to meet
right.
you.
Oh, yeah. This has been TJ Cates, Nashville Entertainment Weekly.
Jill Santibanez and
Rick Revel.